Hey, this is Seth at Music Teachers Muse. Tune in Fridays PST at midnight for new episodes. See you there. Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to teach you how to teach your students how to tune their instruments. So I was thinking the other day, this is something we should have covered a while ago, but better late than never, because it's one of the first things you teach them. So let's jump right in. The first thing that they need to do every time that they play is tune before they play anything. I couldn't tell you if I had a half of a penny for every time I've asked a student, "Are you tuned up?" They'll say, "I think so," or "I should be," or they'll start to tune and they'll be like, "Damn it, I just tuned it this morning," or "I just tuned this thing yesterday." So, aneurysm phase, because you have wood and your strings are made of metal, which are responsive to temperature changes. If it's really hot or the temperature in your car was different than the temperature in your house or your apartment, if it rains a lot, your strings are going to soak up a little bit of the moisture in here. They're going to go sharp, and it's a thing. If you have a high quality instrument like this one or any of mine, they're going to retain their tuning better. But they're guitars, they're fretted instruments, and they're temperamental. It's never ever in perfect tune. The laws of physics will not allow that. But Jesus, Lord help me, getting students to understand this, whether they're kids or adults, I don't know what the magic formula is. So if you have some helpful suggestions, please let me know. I would love to hear what you have to say about this. It's not something I've been able to get most of my students to understand, regardless of how explicitly direct I make it. And as you probably noticed, I don't beat around the bush. I tell things just like I see it, and I'm rather blunt. So let's jump into how we go about this. So we're going to go over headstock tuner versus an app tuner. Now, as you see, I've got a headstock tuner here. This one's a little harder to see where the camera is at. I'm going to turn it on here. Headstock tuner measures string vibration. So you don't have to have the volume coming out of the amp to be able to do that. You hit the string and bam. Right now my low E string is in tune, as you can see. What you want to understand and communicate to the student about how the headstock tuner works is, see now it says it's a little sharp. I picked the string a little bit harder, so that makes it vibrate more, so that tells me the string now it's a little bit lower. It fluctuates a little bit. It's never going to be dead on for any length of time, for a very small period of time. But what the tuner does is say it's here's in tune and here's flat below pitch, here's sharp above pitch. Tune is right in the middle. So what you need to get the student to understand is that the tuner does not tell you, well, technically it does. It tells you where you need to take the string to get it in tune, but what the tuner actually physically does, as far as the readout on there, it tells you where the note is at right now. So when you tune that string, say if your low E string is at D sharp, that's the note below E a half step. It's not going to say E flat, it will say D sharp if it's a chromatic tuner, which most of them do. I've never seen one say E flat. There probably is one, but it's not important right now. So they have to know they have to go up because that's the note below E. If it says F, that's above E, just tell them to follow the alphabet, and you have 5 sharps besides the 7 natural notes, which are notes that aren't sharp or flat, and you have to go up. So that is the basic understanding of that. So if it's a G sharp and they have to tune to A, they have to go up. If it's a C sharp, they have to tune to D, they have to go up. If it's D sharp and they have to tune to D, they have to go down, and so forth. That is as basic as I can describe it, but that's something that you got to get them to understand. The next part is we're going to go over the app tuner. So what we've got here, so we have this app here, the Guitar Tuna. It's the one that's, I believe, goes with the Musician app, which I've heard people talk good things about. The app is free, it's downloadable. This is just the free version. But what it does here, I'm going to turn my volume up, and I'm going to hit the low E. It tells me it's in tune. Now if I detune the string, I'm just going to crank this back a little bit, it says it's too low, which is good. It doesn't tell them flat or sharp, it says too low, so that tells them they have to go up. A little more. back in tune again. Okay? So that's how that works. And it works on the same way on all of your strings. This guitar is already in tune, obviously. So that's was a little sharp. So crank it back a little bit. To the B string. Now, one thing about this app that you will want to know if you haven't used it, if you've been playing recently, you probably have used this app, but I don't know that, so I'm just informing you the best I can. This app will only measure open strings. You can't do the 12th fret harmonic and have it do what you want it to. It says that's the D string. So, yeah, okay. But, you know, it's designed to do what it does. You have it on auto where it senses the string automatically. If you take it off auto, it only measures that one string. And you can hit the button where it'll sound what the string is supposed to sound like. So that is the first part, just understanding the headstock tuner versus the app tuner. Most people will use this, but that is just a basic description of that. Now, what we're going to do next is I'm going to actually have to unlock the nut on this guitar. This is part of the whole understanding how to use a Floyd Rose, also, which we're going to cover in this section. Because you have two types of headstocks. You have 6 on a side and 3 on a side. And getting students to understand that those are different, even though they can physically see, it's just a thing that takes them a while, like everything else that you teach them in general. So what we're going to do here is, I'm just going to go ahead and continue using the app, and you'll be able to hear it click as I get the string in tune or not. So I'm going to tune down a little bit. This is my low E string, for example. So we've all seen people do this in a music store. Give me a break, damn it. You don't have to do that. But people do it. I don't understand why. Because regardless of however you tune your guitar or your stringed instrument, whether it be a bass or a uke, then the only way the tuner can measure to get the guitar in tune or whatever instrument it is by the string vibrating consistently. If you're constantly picking it while you're turning the string up, it still vibrates, but every time you pick the string, you have to start that vibration over again. So the best way to do it, tune down, you pick the string, let it ring, because the only way to do it is to turn the peg while the string is ringing. You do it very slowly, and bam, we're in tune. And if you go a little too far, fine, but you got to do it slow enough where you get it there. A lot of people just want to crank on the thing, and then they go way too far, or they go way too low, and it takes them forever to get one string in tune. You will combat this with your students. Trust me, you will. Now, on a 6 on a headstock, it goes this way. Up is always this direction, down is always this direction. So sharp, flat, period. That's just how it works. So once you get your strings in tune, with the Floyd Rose, we're going to go ahead and finish this part of the lesson up. You want to tune the strings with the nut unlocked here, because if they're not used to this kind of a system, they're going to want to tune here when the nut's already locked, and you can't do that on a Floyd. This is an Ibanez Edge 0 trim. It's not a Floyd Rose, but it is a Floyd Rose style bridge. It operates essentially the same way. You've got a locking nut and fine tuners, and that's as basic as I can make it. So we're going to tune the low E. That's in tune. And the A. Oh, I'm in manual mode. Let me get out of there. Okay, that's in tune. Okay, so that's all in tune here. So now I'm going to lock the nut. I'm going to finger tighten it, and then use my wonderful Ibanez Prestige tool, which has all the Allen wrenches and things you would need specifically for Ibanez. But if you have a Floyd Rose of any kind, you're going to want something like this. You only need actually a 3 millimeter Allen wrench to unlock the bridge or the nut. But this has everything else you might need in it, and it's just good to have it around, whether it's a multi-tool or it's the actual Ibanez and Prestige tool. One of our techs at the store gave this to me because mine didn't come with it. So he's a good dude, period, but he gets extra credit for that. So now I've locked the low E string. And yeah, in this case, that didn't need any extra adjustment after I did that. Sometimes you'll have to do that. But on the bridge, once you lock the nut, sharp is this way, flat is this way. Clockwise for sharp, counterclockwise for flat. Works the same way as here, it just looks different. Takes a little while for him to get used to the visual part of it. So now we're going to do the D string and the G. Okay, we're in tune here. Finger tighten. And again, lock the nut. You want to make sure that yourself, but make sure to tell the student, do not over tighten these because they will strip. And then you have a real problem because you're going to strip the nut and you're going to need to replace the nut, which is not super, it's not super expensive, but it's something you don't want to have to deal with if you don't. I've never once stripped one myself in almost 30 years of playing. So now the D and the G string are locked in the middle here. Okay, we're good there. I'm going to do the B sharp. Come on. Those are in tune here. Again, finger tighten. And lock the nut and check it again. And this works the same way. You want to make sure the string is ringing while you're tuning it. Pick it one time, let the string ring as you're turning it up, like we showed you with the low E string a little bit ago. If the string stops ringing or the readout on your headstock tuner or this one doesn't pick it up, pick it again. That's the only way it's going to work. Okay, so this guitar is now in as perfect a tune as we can get it. So what we're going to do now is demonstrate how to tell the students to tune the 3 on a side headstock. So now we've got 3 on a side, and it's the same tuning concept. You're going to tune it the exact same way, obviously, but it is different because it's visually different. And anything that's visually different, like for instance, these are super different guitars. Like this one's got 3 pickups, this one has 2, this one has 2, this one's got 3 switches and 4 knobs. So all this stuff, you always have to educate your students on what to do because, I mean, for us as professionals, it's self-explanatory because we know all this, but you know, it's confusing to them. So just make sure you make everything really thorough, like everything else we've covered on this channel. So now, this is up on this side, this is down. However, on the other side, it's reverse, as we should know. This is up and this is down. Pray that your students get 6 on a side and don't have a Floyd if they're beginners, because it's going to make your life much easier. Because just literally, a lot of people buy a cheap Floyd Rose equipped guitar and then they don't get it set up right, and that's nothing but tuning problems if you're not familiar with that. And it looks cool, but oh my lord, it's just pray that they get a non-locking trim with 6 on the side, because it's going to make your life much easier. It's hard enough for them to get the thing in tune without that. So we're going to hit the low E here. It's a little low. We're going to go up. Remember, we're turning the peg as it rings. Okay, and then A. A little high. It's saying it's too high, but it's correct. So I'm going to detune this. Now to go up, I've got to go this way now. Good. And I apologize for saying that up is this way, because it usually is, but I apparently restrung this. Well, I shouldn't have. So on my guitar, up is this way on this side, so pardon me, but usually it's the other direction. I'm not a guitar tech. I can change my own strings, but admittedly, I don't do it that often. So I'm used to having great techs. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Moshe. Thank you, Matt. Y'all fucking rock. Now, the next thing we want to cover is I don't believe that you should ever completely trust a tuner, because I have cursed many a tuner. I've cursed a strobe tuner for not being in tune before, because sometimes they're just not. I've had the tuner tell me my strings are all in tune, and then bam, they're sharp. You play a chord and it sounds like, you know, and you just have to be able to know how to get it in tune, even if you do have a tuner. Now, tuning silently is preferred. You can't with this tuner because with the app because it has to pick up the sound. With a headstock tuner or a pedal tuner, you absolutely can. That's great. But even my Boss TU2 tried and true has got a strobe feature in it. The other day, this guitar, it told me it was in tune, and it wasn't. So there's another method that you can do that is going to help your students develop their ear better, and as well as just gives them another option. Now, most of them will not rely on this. They will use the tuner no matter what. But that's okay. As long as they can get reasonably well in tune, it's good. So let's check it out. I call this the pitch matching method because I don't know how else to do it, but it's an easy way to describe it. So I'm just going to tune the A string. I'm just going to tune it down a little bit. Okay, now the A string is now in tune. So I'm going to turn the app off. Now, most of you have probably done this if you've been playing guitar any length of time. People use harmonics too. We're not going to do that today. We're just going to do the regular pitch matching method. So now the A string is in tune. I'm going to fret the A string at the 5th fret and tune the open D string to the fretted D note at the 5th fret. I'm going to detune the D string. So, as we know, the more the note oscillates, the further out of tune it is. The slower that fluctuation goes, the closer to tune it is. The hardest thing to get the students to do when you're using this method is keeping their fret hand on the string. Because they'll do this, and then they'll reach up to tune with this hand. That is not the way that it's done. You must use this hand to do it because the string has to, again, ring continuously for you to be able to get it in tune. Like so. Now when I check, it's still a tiny bit flat. The perfect pitch thing can be a real bastard sometimes. Okay? So that's the A string and the D string are now in tune. Now I'm going to fret the D string at the 5th fret. I'm going to tune the open G string to this note because this is now, the D string is now in tune. Now I'm fretting a G note on the D string. You always want to make sure that's a little out of tune. It's a little flat. But you want to make sure that the note is ringing against the other note. Otherwise, you can't get it in tune this way. And now we're in tune. That was a little bit flat. The only one that you have to tune at the 4th fret is the B string because the B string is tuned a third apart from the G string. All the other two strings are tuned in fourths. So that's just a fact. So you gotta go to the 4th fret, fret the G string. G string is now in tune. We're going to tune the B string to the G string. Actually, that was out of tune also. And now we're good. Now we go back up to the 5th fret for the B string. See, all a little bit out of tune. A little bit sharp with that one. Okay? So now we're in perfect tune except for the low E. So since you tuned your open A first, that one you can tune the low E or the open A first and then tune the rest of them to that. But I always start with the A string. This is how my original teacher Scott taught me to do it. And so now your open A was already in tune. So now you fret your low E at the 5th fret, which is an A note, and you tune the low E note A note to the open A. And now we're in tune. So that is all of the parameters of teaching your students how to tune. Now there's a little more to it than that. This is as basic as I could make it, but it is a very important thing. Let's recap. So the first thing, get them to make it a habit. Tune every time you play, regardless if you just played it 10 minutes ago, 10 hours ago, yesterday, this morning. Every time you play it, especially if you're in a performance or a recording environment. But period, you don't want to get in the habit of playing out of tune. And even people who don't play instruments can tell when they're noticeably out of tune. They sound like crap when it's like that. So just get that as to try to instill that to them. Again, please leave a comment if you have a suggestion, because I don't know how to get them to do it. I've been preaching it for years. I don't know what it takes, because most of them just don't. Second thing, headstock versus the app tuner. We've got the headstock tuner here, measures the string vibration, versus the app tuner on the phone, which is a little bit easier for students to interpret because it just tells you too low, too high. Make sure that they know how the headstock tuner works. It measures the string vibration, and that they have to know which note to get to, whether they've got to go up or down. Just tell them to follow the alphabet, and the notes in between are the sharps. The headstock tuner will not say flat, it will always say sharp, or the hashtag sign for us modern people, because nobody sees that as a number sign anymore. But that's that. Then you've got your 3 on a side versus your 6 on a side headstock, these here. And then you've got your Floyd Rose, where you unlock the nut, tune at the headstock, then lock the nut, and then tune at the bridge. This way is sharp, this way is flat, clockwise, counterclockwise, works the same way. Then you've got the pitch matching method, which is great because, again, you don't ever want to completely trust a tuner. At least I don't. Of course, I have perfect pitch. I hear everything. It is annoying sometimes, as well as it is a gift. It can be a real pain in the ass. But regardless, if I had a nickel for every time I've heard a guitar that was out of tune after a tuner told me it was, then I have a lot of money. But it's also good just to teach your students to tune by ear, so they can recognize that, so they don't have to always rely on the tuner. The headstock tuner is great because it's right here. You click it on, and you can get your guitar back in tune really quick. But a lot of times they don't even notice that it's out of tune until you tell them. They're just focused on what they're actually playing. But it is an important skill for you to have. So thanks for tuning in and watching. Please hit the bell for new videos. Subscribe, like, share. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Check out our sponsors in the description below. And we will see you next week.